Hello? Forgotten Cinema intro guy? Are you in here? It's me, Mike. You gotta say your thing. We gotta start the show. Where am I?
What I wrote down.
I think it was one of the first horror movies I put on our list, and just watching it again, I was just like, I made a mistake. And Jesse Eisenberg's name popped up. Jesse Eisenberg? No!
Who did you think played the brother?
Makes out with Jimmy for no reason. Jimmy didn't earn that kiss.
He did. Where we're going, you don't need us.
Here's the 4th annual Forgotten Horror. Boo.
Take it or leave it. Hi, I'm Mike Field.
And I'm Mike Butler.
And you're now entering the House of the Devil, the apartment of the damned, and the shanty town of lost souls. Welcome to the 4th annual Forgotten Horror. Each episode will discuss a film that was forgotten by audiences. Perhaps they were too busy running from the ghosts of murdered children. Maybe they were bitten by a strange creature and like to howl at the moon. Or maybe they're being terrorized by an ancient wooden fetish doll. We'll discuss what we love about the movie or perhaps don't love about it, but we'll always recommend you revisit it. If you're not getting sucked into an event horizon and ripping your skin from your face, we want to hear from you. We're on Instagram and Facebook. Find us or we'll find you. Our podcast is available on all platforms for your listening displeasure. What's
Ooh. Nothing, just continuing the spook as we're heading closer into Halloween.
We are. Oh, well, I guess 2 weeks away. This is our 3rd episode of Forgotten Horror. If you have not listened to our previous episodes, we started off a trilogy of terror with guest star John Doolin from You Can't Sit With Us. And then we went on to do, and I forgot the movie already, Butler. What did we do second?
What did we do last week? A very
Cursed.
memorable film. Cursed.
We did the Wes Craven movie Cursed, the Cursed movie Cursed.
Which is why we forgot about it already.
We did. That was a movie that was an episode where we talked a lot about behind the scenes stuff, which was really interesting to learn. So I actually liked that episode. So I hope everyone did as well. But Butler,
yes,
what movie are we doing today?
We are doing 2001's, and I can't believe it was all the way back in 2001 already. The Others, starring Nicole Kidman.
I thought you were going to go right into
I didn't have the summary. I failed.
Awesome.
The summary I have up is atrocious.
Nice.
I forgot. I read it and I hated it. So I need to bring up another summary.
Those are the best kind.
Grace, Nicole Kidman, the devoutly religious mother of Anne and Nicholas, moves her family to the English coast during World War II. She awaits word on her missing husband while protecting her children from a rare photosensitivity disease that causes the sun to harm them. Anne claims she sees ghosts. Grace initially thinks the new servants are playing tricks, but chilling events and visions make her believe something supernatural has occurred.
Oh, Grace. Oh, poor Grace. So The Others has a runtime of 101 minutes. It's rated PG-13. Production budget of $17 million. It came out on August 10th, 2001, which was a Friday. Its opening weekend, it did $14 million. Domestic, 96.5. International, $113.4 million. And for a worldwide total of $209.9 million. So I don't know if we can say it's forgotten, Butler, can we?
Oh, it's forgotten. It was a hit, but it's a forgotten hit.
Yes. The international take is obviously very big because this is actually considered a Spanish film. It's considered a foreign film because and this is the actual first film to win Best Film for the Goyas, which is Spain's national film award, kind of like the Oscars. It's the first English-speaking film to win for Best Film for the Goyas. So that is an achievement nonetheless. Production company was Las Producciones del Escorpión, Soj Cine, Cruz Wagner Productions, and Dimension Films. It was distributed by Dimension Films. Also, I think that's when they were owned by Miramax, which is owned by Disney. So it's a little convoluted, the distributor, but I have Dimension Films there.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I said it came out on the 10th of August. It went up against in a wide release American Pie 2, which was a big hit because it's obviously a sequel to a very, very popular film. That film being American Pie, of course. You also had Osmosis Jones, a limited release of Session 9 and The Deep End. I would say Session 9 is kind of its competition there, even though it's limited, because that's a little bit more of a horror movie as well. Would you think? Yeah. Wide release. So, excuse me, on the 17th, the week after, in a wide release, you had Rat Race, American Outlaws, and Captain Corelli's Mandolin. And then the 3rd of August, which is the week before, you had a wide release of another sequel, Rush Hour 2, The Princess Diaries, Original Sin, and a limited release of Apocalypse Now, Redux. That's actually a tough weekend to open up because Rush Hour 2 is going to be
big,
popular because Rush Hour is a huge film. American Pie 2 as well. You had a kids movie and Osmosis Jones, even though it's mixing live action and animation. So those are, that's a tough weekend to open up in. And I mean, to its credit, it did well. And it opened 4th, I believe.
It did, but it was
a weekend.
It stayed in 4th for like 7 weeks and then went up in a 7th week, shot up to number 2.
Mm-hmm. We'll get into it a little bit. I question I don't know why I question it made money, but I question the summer release for this film. But again, it made money. So who am I to question,
Right.
Written and directed and composed by Alejandro Amenabar. I hope I said that right. He has done Open Your Eyes, which is actually the movie that Vanilla Sky was a remake of. Mm-hmm. He's also done The Sea Inside and Thesis. He gets credit for writing Vanilla Sky. Cinematographer, and I'm going to butcher this, was Javier Akirasarobe, who did the 2011 Fright Night Butler that we did.
Yeah.
He's also done The Road and the two Twilight Saga films, Eclipse and New Moon. Edited by Nacho Ruiz Capias, who's done Intruders and Agora, excuse me. And then produced by Fernando Bavaria, Jose Luis Cureda, and Sumnin Park. Bavaria, I hope I'm saying that name right. I'm probably not. Did Beautiful in the Summer. Cureda did Butterfly and Open Your Eyes. And Park has done The Emperor and The Assassin. That's actually one film. Nicole Kidman plays Grace. She's only won one Oscar, Butler. Did you know that?
I feel like I did know that.
Do you know how many she's been nominated for? Because this didn't throw me, but I never really thought of it.
4?
5. So she was nominated, obviously, 1 for The Hours, nominated for Moulin Rouge, Rabbit Hole, Lion, and Being the Ricardos. That's the more recent one.
I forgot all about Lion.
Oh, right. Fanula Flanagan as Mrs. Mills. She's from Waking Ned Divine, The Guard, and Tears of the Sun. Christopher Eccleston, Butler's favorite. Eccleston, whatever. I don't care. What is it again? Eccleston?
Eccleston.
I should know that. I don't know why I don't know that. I think I block how to say names out. So anyways, he plays Charles. He's one of the doctors on Doctor Who TV show. He's also in Thor: The Dark World and Shallow Grave, an episode we did a season and a half ago. Maybe a season ago.
2 seasons ago.
2? I thought
definitely wasn't last season.
That more recent.
It wasn't long ago.
Oh yeah, no. Alakina Man as Anne. She's one of the daughter, Grace's daughter. She's in The Girl with the Pearl Ring and nothing else. James Bentley, Nicholas. He is Grace's son. Eccleston plays Kidman's husband. Just FYI there. Anyways, Bentley was in The Life and Death of Peter Sellers as well. Both these child actors really didn't go on to do, or didn't really have a big career in terms of TV and movie after this. And they might do some theater, but as far as the credits go for TV and the big screen, very little. Elaine Cassidy as Lydia. She is in Disco Pigs and Felicia's Journey. Eric Sykes as Mr. Tuttle from Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire and One Way Pendulum. And then you had a couple of people in here that I didn't know if you recognized them, Butler. You had Keith Allen as Mr. Marlish, who owned the house. He's from Shallow Grave. Obviously, we talked about that. He's the drug dealer that dies.
Right,
Yep. Michelle Fairley as Mrs. Marlish. She is Catelyn Stark from Game of Thrones, which I did not recognize her.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I recognized her. I was like, wow, she's young.
Well, that's, I think, probably why I didn't recognize. I mean, and plus she's on the screen real quick. So it's like, oh wait a minute. Who? And then I knew she looked familiar, but I did not know from where. And then Renee Asherson, who plays the old lady, her credits old lady, but she's the psychic. She's the medium.
Right.
She's from Henry V from 1944. And Miss Marple, A Murder is Announced, for fans of Asherson out there. So I had seen this, but I didn't remember much of it. I knew the twist. And before we start, we're going to talk about the twist. So if you haven't seen it, sorry. So I remember the twist. I just didn't remember everything leading up to it. So this is probably my second viewing. I've probably seen bits and pieces here and there. Was this your second viewing?
This would be my second full viewing. Like you, I had seen bits and pieces. Obviously remember the twist. I remember not only the twist, I remember what she did. what Grace did, why they died. And I remember the end scene of this is our house. I remember the chant at the end as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered that the 3 caretakers were also, spoiler, were also ghosts as well.
Right.
So like, I remember all that part of the twist, like anything that revolved around what the ghost story was, but the specifics I didn't remember much of.
Well, let me ask you this to start. It's obviously a ghost story, but is this real? On the scale of horror stories, I don't know if horror, just in the horror genre, how would you not rank this, but list this as? What is this something that's?
I'd classify it as like gothic horror, but it's similar to like The Woman in Black,
right.
Which is just kind of like, it's spooky. Mm-hmm. It's a ghost story, but it's not necessarily out to give you jump scares and it's like spooky at every turn. It's there to just kind of give you an eerie atmosphere. It's a much more atmospheric movie.
So, but you still think horror is the main genre of this piece? Not,
I would
like,
still
say,
call
drama,
it horror,
or they're not equal or anything like that. I don't have an answer. I'm just
asking.
I
guess I would, if I had to I would probably do horror drama, right, just to clear things up. People going into it who are just expecting it to be, 13 ghosts or whatever. It's like, no, this is definitely a drama,
right? Like
a horror drama,
right? Yeah, that makes sense. I just, about an hour or so into the film, I'm just like, I was like, this isn't. I mean, it doesn't. It took a while to get into it, but like in terms of kind of the creep factor, you just had a lot of like her around the house, her telling the help
the
who
maids
shows
off
up what to do. Yeah, it felt more like a drama in the beginning, and then it kind of got into the ghost story, the horror element. Do you think that's fair to say?
I think so. My first start of notes is basically that I was afraid that knowing the twist was ruining the movie for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I was watching it, the first, like you said, maybe hour, probably about an hour, I was just kind of like, this movie needs to move. It needs to go somewhere. Because it's not really going anywhere. It's a really slow buildup to what's about to happen. And I think the fact that part of that's affected, but the fact that we know the twist. Mm-hmm. So, my husband's off at war and I need to protect these kids and this and that. But when you know that she's dead, she killed her kids and that the husband is dead as well. It's just kind of like, I don't care. My note is that it was really easy to pick up The Sixth Sense and watch The Sixth Sense over and over and over, knowing that twist.
Yes.
But this film, I think knowing the twist of this film hurts this film, whereas knowing the twist of The Sixth Sense lets you just watch that in a different way.
Well, let me backtrack then, because usually I start off our discussion with, did anything change for you? And
right.
It sounds like it did change for you.
I didn't have the patience. Yeah, I just didn't have the patience for the non-ghost stuff. Like I wanted things to move a little quicker.
Right.
Which I get. It's not a very long movie to begin with,
mm-hmm.
but just waiting an hour to get to anything interesting just is way too long.
And to jump on that note, also, I thought that knowing the twist and then the dialogue from Mrs. Mills, when she's like, and she's like hinting at things, it felt like, I don't want to say it annoyed me, but it was just like, it felt cute. Like, in good time. It felt really cute in the moments where it still didn't have that effect that probably, because I think when you first watch the movie, you don't have any idea what's going on. So anything they're saying, you're almost equating confusion with the mystery being, encasing you. And you're like, ooh, what's going on? Because you're confused. But then when like you said, that dialogue suddenly takes on a different, I don't know. Sometimes when you go back and the twist about other movies, and then you start about a movie, and then you listen to the dialogue and listen to scenes, you kind of like, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like in Sixth Sense, he never looks at him, like that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's really awesome. But in this movie, for some reason, I just felt like I was just like, stop, please, just this is, you know what I mean? And maybe that's what you're trying to. That's what I'm. That's just basically echoing what you're saying.
That's exactly my feeling. Like I got up, I went to the fridge. I got some watermelon. Elise was home in between shifts, and I was just like, yeah, I just don't care. I know what's happening. I know what will happen. Like it's just not getting to the point.
Yeah.
Like
So
you said,
you-
in Sixth Sense, it's like he can't open the doors, he can't touch the knob. But this movie doesn't really establish any ghost rules.
No, they eat.
They eat, they drink,
They
they
drink.
touch everything, but they have to lock the doors and they can't go through doors. It's very strange.
Yeah. Oh, you mean when I thought the same thing when Mrs. Mills and Mr. Tuttle and Lydia came up to the door and they're like, you have to let us in. They know already. It's like, why don't you walk through the door? I don't understand why you can't walk through the door. They know who you are. Yeah, I'm just thinking about it because I'm just like, I just want to be like, I totally agree and then move on. But I mean, I'm trying to think of like the whole stuff with Victor, with the boy that is actually living, and you realize that the two kids are terrorizing Victor and not the other way around, or maybe just he sees them. But you only see Victor once and at the end, and it's like, it still doesn't feel like they're part of the story. That whole family, the old lady, Victor, it just feels like a bookend at the end. And now we're like, oh, okay, see ya. And I almost want more of them. Like, I almost want to see them as ghosts to our ghosts, thinking that they're ghosts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you do get that one moment where you see Victor's hand come down.
Right. He taps him.
And he taps, what's the James, right? Nicholas. He taps Nicholas. But other than that, you don't see them at all. And like you said, it'd be nice. You hear him breathing at one point and you hear walking upstairs, but you never see the ghosts. Whereas I feel like you should see the ghost at some point, like you said. Right. Just to make them, even if they're ethereal, even if it's only a moment or just a flash in the doorway, like you see the wife or the husband, would have been much more powerful. Made the last scenes with them more powerful.
And I also wonder if, although I don't have a problem with the runtime, the hour and 44 minutes, but I also wonder if this movie could have used a 15, 20-minute shave and it would have gotten right, and it would have been too quick for us to kind of nitpick. Because I think the pacing of the story is definitely takes its time, but it takes its time, I think, a little too much. And then, so maybe if we don't give it that leeway to take its time, it'll get right to it and we'll be more enraptured with the storytelling. It's not a bad movie. I don't want to give people the impression I think it's a bad movie. I don't know if I think for me, maybe it doesn't hold up as much in terms of, a movie needs to stand on its own once you know the twist. If a movie relies on the twists completely to give you that sensation of a great film, that's really tough to kind of it's tough to kind of continue on and carry over for your appreciation of the movie. So it's almost like an event film, like Blair Witch. Like Blair Witch is an event film, and then you see it and you're like, I don't need to see it again. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That's my entire thinking of this movie was just, wow, I'm the one that put it on the list. It's been on our list for forever. I think it was one of the first horror movies I put on our list. And just watching it again, I was just like, I made a mistake. And like you said, it's not a bad movie. And once it started going, I regretted saying, this movie's not good. But the beginning, I was almost saying, I don't think this movie's good, because I think if you haven't seen this movie before, you're going to see it for the first time and you'll probably really enjoy it. But if you have already seen it, it loses the magic. It really hinges on the twist. And I think also part of that is maybe I don't care about Grace, knowing what she did.
She's not a likable character. And yes.
So knowing what she did on top of how she's introduced and every scene she's in, it's hard to feel bad for her.
Yeah, I almost felt like... So what Butler's alluding to, for people who haven't seen it, and I apologize, but here we go. They're ghosts because Grace smothers her kids because she can't stand that. She finds out her husband's dead. And she can't stand that he's dead. So she smothers her kids, and then she realizes she smothers her kids, and then she kills herself. She shoots herself with the shotgun. And there's actually a moment in the movie, which I actually like this moment, where she grabs the shotgun and loads it, but pauses, because that's supposed to be her having deja vu about what she did to herself. And Butler's right. It's not even the fact that she's already somebody who has killed her own kids. And so that's all you're immediately like, oh, come on, this is not cool. Understand that she's completely depressed. But at the end of the film, it's like the kids accept her. They hug her. I get it. They don't understand. They don't know. because this is the only thing they know, their mother. And it's like, and now they're a family again, but it's like, you're still sitting there going, but you murdered them.
Yep.
And it's really difficult for me as an audience member to really, it's just depressing. I think it's just a very depressing ending to the film because you don't leave with any kind of sense of satisfaction, like the children's souls are at rest.
Right. They're not.
Anything like that. Yeah.
The psychic tries to figure it out and save them, and the mom basically stops it.
Yeah.
The kids are stuck in limbo for something the mother did for no reason. Like when the husband comes home, that he's a ghost, clearly a ghost.
Which continue, because I want to ask you something about that.
Right. And he's stuck in his own limbo and the front lines. He was just able to make it back to, tell her he was sorry, blah, 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 see his kids one more time. And then his haunt is like, I got to go haunt the front, apparently. But I get that he's a soldier, so he's done bad things. He's killed people. People have killed him, obviously. Sometimes I bleed, which is a terrible line. I hated that line. But it's well acted. He leaves. You kind of get the feeling that he was a ghost. Even if you don't know the twist that's coming, that the whole family's a ghost, you kind of get that he's a ghost.
And he knows he's a ghost.
And he is well aware. And that's why he's so off put when he sees them. And I think he has the idea that they might be ghosts.
But why doesn't he get angry? Like, why does he never just have any kind of fury towards his wife?
I don't know.
But that's not what I wanted to ask you, but go ahead.
He did seem upset when he knew the answer. Like, I know what you did that day. But at that point, what's he going to do? They're dead. She's dead. At least they're together.
Mm-hmm.
I guess when you're already dead and you know it, there's really no point for rage. Plus, clearly, he's still, even though he's dead, super affected by the war. So.
Right. And what I wanted to ask you was, why does he show up? Is he sent to her by some other force to keep her there, to torture her? Are we saying that he just happens upon her in the fog? I think the fog is there. The fog is the in-between.
Mm-hmm. You can get into the fog, you can get lost in the fog, but you can't go anywhere else. You're just going to end up back where you were haunting. So he was in the fog looking for her. She was looking for him. Who knows how long he was in the fog looking for her.
But he shouldn't be able to go back to the house.
Well, I think maybe because she grabbed him and took him.
Well, maybe.
But yeah, again,
she should be able, but
ghost rules are so loosey-goosey. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really understand. That's the thing. He just shows up and it felt convenient. And it felt like this little trick. Like a lot of this feels like plot device, convenience. And it was very difficult to rationalize a lot of the stuff in the movie, especially when he shows up. Cause I was just like, it's cool. It's a cool moment. Like, why are you there? Like the whole, if you just take that, if that was just the short, if it was just him coming home and the disconnect, and if it just started like that, if the movie started like that was fascinating because, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to go down this road because it's just me rewriting the film, but that part was fascinating.
I think that's another thing though, is like when you watch it the first time, like you said, it was cool and stuff. But when you're watching it a second time, you can't help but think about things a little deeper. That's why you watch something a second time.
Mm-hmm.
And a movie like Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, like, I can watch that movie a million times. It's a phenomenal movie, and it clearly establishes ghost rules. Here's what they can do. Here's what they can't do. Sixth Sense, even though they don't, throughout the entire movie, they establish here's what ghosts can and can't do. I feel like to have a good ghost movie, even a movie like 13 Ghosts that I made fun of earlier, they establish their ghost rules. As terrible as that movie, it's fun though. I like that movie. But
I think
they establish rules,
right? And to be fair, just because we both like rules to be established doesn't mean that doesn't shake out for everyone else, and that's fine.
It still works.
I think the big thing about this film, and I don't want to get too negative. Well, it doesn't matter. And this is going to turn into a negative. Is that it's got great atmosphere. It looks fantastic.
Right.
The problem is it looks the same all movie. Nothing changed. It's dreary. It's gray. again, you leave the theater and it's like, God forbid if it was raining that day when anyone watched this in the theater, because you'd just be super depressed all day.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's just not a fun movie to walk out of at the end. It's like the opposite of escapism. And again, there's definitely a place for those films. It's tough to revisit those films unless you're Wednesday Addams or you love depression like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And those movies are like kind of like your comfort. So, so it's just, I liked the way it looked in the atmosphere. It's just so much that it's almost like when the cinematographer is getting ready to set up the shot and he's like, all right, yeah, I know, more fog, pump it in, let's go.
It's like the whole thing. I mean, obviously it's very gothic and atmospheric, like you said, but it's almost like it wanted to be a play. Like The Woman in Black, even though it's also the Daniel Radcliffe movie, it started as a play.
Mm-hmm. And this would be a good play.
Yeah, exactly. The whole time I'm watching this going, I think this would make a better play than a movie because you'd probably cut it down to be shorter. It doesn't have that many characters. And you'd be in one location. So the fact that it's so dreary all the time and everything looks the same would totally make sense.
Mm-hmm.
You could do maybe 2 different rooms or maybe be able to take one room and swap out different things about it to make it different rooms.
Right.
But like you said, there's in a lot of movies that have big old houses, there are some really interesting looking rooms within the houses.
Mm-hmm.
Even the new Haunting of Hill House, which is very similar gothic atmosphere, not necessarily super scary, but creepy atmosphere. They have different rooms that all the rooms look very different. Whereas in here, I couldn't tell you the difference between the different rooms other than some are big and some are small and some are covered in sheets. Even
when they go to the present, what do you think that's supposed to be, like early 50s or late 40s? Like how long have they been dead?
I think like mid 50s. Okay. I don't think they've been dead for too long because I think they've been dead just long enough to maybe the house was on the market. Obviously, the bodies were cleaned
buyers,
up. Yeah. I think these are the first buyers, which is why that the caretakers have appeared to them to kind of go like, hey, listen, you're going to have to learn to live with people. Like we had to learn to live with you when you were alive.
Yeah.
Because people are going to keep living in this house.
And then Mrs. Mills tosses that line out there where it's like, sometimes they see us, sometimes they don't. And I'm sitting there going, why? Like, I want to know more. Don't just drop that line. I like that line though, because it's like, obviously they didn't see him and not everybody can see ghosts or has a haunted experience. So like that kind of kind of like that line drop. But like you said, can I learn more now that we know that they're ghosts? Can we learn more about what it is to be ghosts? Yeah. I think it would have been a much better ending and would have spoken, like you said, I don't want to rewrite this either, but you're right that the ending is dreary. Grace doesn't really redeem herself unless what if they learn to live with this family, Beetlejuice style, it's just like, I think that needed to happen because no lessons were learned other than the lesson of, oh, I murdered you guys. But we have to learn to live together. Let me treat this new little boy with respect, to treat this family with respect. Now we have to live. We have other people here. Mm-hmm.
And then you could have ended it. Obviously they do end where to Victor and his family, the lights are shining and it's nice outside, but it would have been nice to kind of maybe see some of that fog lift around the mansion, having Grace accept who she was or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I laugh because you're like the it's nice outside. It's just light cloudy. It's still no sun. Still England.
Still England.
I know it's shot in Spain, but it's still England.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Jersey. Yeah.
Yeah. Jersey Island. Yeah.
It's as sunny as it gets.
Yeah, I know. So the movie is based a lot on Amenabar's Catholic school education and drawings from books of the 30s and 40s that he read as a child. But I want to focus on the Catholic part because there are a couple moments in the movie where faith comes up.
Definitely at the beginning. Yeah.
Right. Talks about reading the Bible when she's pushing the chalkboard to cover the door. To cover the window.
Mm-hmm.
There's a inscription on there about faith. And then when she's walking up the stairs, she grabs the rosary. And I want to talk about that moment because I don't know if there's enough in the film about faith, about the theme of faith and God and belief or anything like that to really make the moment when she grabs the rosary and starts reading it to starts reciting the prayers to really have the effect that maybe they wanted to have there. What did you think about that or about faith as a theme in the movie?
I thought the whole theming of faith was definitely that it doesn't have all the answers. That was definitely what I think they were going with there. I mean, even Miss Mills straight up says it at one point, which when you read the notes and you learn that the director was lapsed Catholic, like now he's agnostic
now. Yeah.
So that makes sense. And you can definitely see that. But I think grabbing the rosary, like you said, it just seemed like, oh, we got to heighten. Let's show how scared she is because she's holding the rosary. It didn't really mean anything.
Right.
It might have been better if she herself was a lapsed Catholic. And because she thinks her husband is gone, and as she goes through the movie, she kind of regains that.
Mm-hmm. And they do talk, and I forgot this, but they do talk about the four hells. And they talk about how, but then at the end, the daughter's like, are we in limbo? And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, I don't even know what's going on.
Nobody knows.
Is there a purgatory? Is there heaven? What the heck? I mean, I don't. So everybody we've met that's related to this family is a ghost. So it's everybody a ghost? You know, it's like, so there's a lot of questions there, I guess, for me, which, you know, I mean, honestly, shut up, Mike. You know, it's like, who cares? Just watch the ghost story, which I get and I respect. So maybe I should just stop nitpicking.
No, continue. One of the things I really liked in the film, and I don't know if you thought the same thing, was a lot of it reminded me of some of the 70s horror films we watched. Like some of the, obviously not the little African doll one of the Trilogy of Terror, but the first two Trilogies of Terrors or Burnt Offerings or any kind of slower paced 70s drama. Like some of the lines Miss Mills says, some of the way the music goes and some of the scenes and the way some of the shots were. It just reminded me of 70s horror.
I think it's, I just don't think it's enough. I think they have to lean that way. If they went that way, maybe it would have been a little bit more palatable and it would have been a different type of story. I think it's 70s, but it's mixed with this 90s ghost story, late 90s ghost stories phenomena that started. Cause there was all these, once Sixth Sense in 99.
Oh yeah.
Like, snatch every ghost story up and do it. You know, so
that's the whole, as I was watching this.
We talked, what's up?
Oh yeah. Stir of Echoes. Yep.
Yeah. Cause we talked, that's the first season. You know, there's just a bunch that come out now after that. You talk about Woman in Black. And so it's almost like 5 or 6 years of just ghost story stuff. So I think I think what you're saying is accurate that it's 70s, but it's mixed with that late 90s ghost stories rush and that kind of sensibility. So it's some kind of amalgamation of those 2 decades. But I probably would have liked this better if it was just more 70s. Like if this was made in the 70s, it probably would have been a much different film. And I probably would have dug it a little bit more.
Yeah, the slowness would have at least kind of made sense.
Right. I mean, Burnt Offerings is slow. Burnt Offerings, you know, takes its time, has a lot of drama, but it's just pieced together really well. And it's just... Well,
that's a slow unraveling. Whereas does anything really unravel? Does anything really change?
This goes back to the conversation that we had to start, which is the movie relies on the twist to be the big thing, the big reveal. And a movie like Burnt Offerings doesn't rely on the twist or a twist in there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the unraveling portion is what is fascinating in that movie as well. So I think, again, when your movie relies on, when you have an M. Night Shyamalan type ending where it's a big twist at the end, you know, you really should make sure everything else in the film really holds up to scrutiny, because if it's just a twist you're hoping to get people to dig into the film, second rewatch ain't going to work out for you. But I think that's exactly what we were saying before.
Yep. It's just, if you have a twist, it has to be there as an addition. It can't be the movie.
Yeah. I'm trying. I mean, obviously, I said Shyamalan. You know, like
you brought me, like, all I could think of was The Village, because knowing the twist Village is still a much better movie.
That's the thing. Like, I remember watching The Village in the theater, and I turned to my buddy and I said, if this is in present day, I'm going to be pissed. Like, it was like 10, 15 minutes in the movie and it happened. And he looks at me and I'm just like, yeah, son of a bitch. I knew it. I knew it. But to The Village's credit, I actually like the first half of the movie. Like, I really like that part. Like, I would have been okay with no twist. And because I really dug the relationships. I really dug all the different I thought it was really well done. But then obviously once they kick into the high gear for this middle of the second act of the third, it kind of relies on that twist part. And then I was just kind of like, nah.
Yeah.
But Sixth Sense holds up. Absolutely holds up.
Oh, Sixth Sense for sure. Signs holds up.
Sure, Unbreakable. I mean, we can just go through his films, but because Unbreakable kind of has that twist at the end, but that's kind of like a classic comic book twist.
That he is the hero and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. So, but it's still a fantastic film. But yeah. So, I mean, I think we're belaboring this point, so we should probably move on from that.
The twist is second to like character development, and I think it all goes back to character development because although I do like this film, and again, I regretted not liking the first half, like being really mad about picking this movie in the first half because the second half redeems it a little bit. But my problem remains that there's no character development. I don't see any development in Grace's character. And obviously the kids are just kids. They don't really, like you said, they're just kind of glomming onto Grace because that's all they have. That's all they know. And I don't feel like Grace earned that. And I don't feel like the kids actually trust her more. Probably trust her less knowing that she killed them, but it's all that they've got is that their murderous mother.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know.
Well, speaking of Kidman, she didn't want to play it. She didn't want to do this role. So this role came after Moulin Rouge, and she didn't want to do this film because she thought it would be really depressing. And then when she did it, she quit during rehearsals because it gave her nightmares. So she already knew that this role was going to be tough to do. To her credit, she stuck it out, and she's really good, even though we're both saying that we don't like her character because of what she did.
Oh, that's her character. She plays it very well. Yeah.
It's a great performance. Yeah.
But she's very strict, very no nonsense. She's almost straight up tough. Like mean and rude to everyone. You only have six characters other than her. The two kids and the three caretakers.
It only took one scene after she hires Mrs. Mills and crew to just start ripping into them.
Yeah.
But I guess that's just that kind of style. Would you watch a remake?
You mean the Indian remake that they did?
No. There's two Hindi remakes that are out there, but no, I'm talking about April 2020. Sentient Entertainment acquired the remake rights to the film, and they plan to revamp the film and set it in present day. And then later in 2020, it was announced that Universal Pictures was going to co-produce and distribute the film with Sentient. Now, I haven't heard anything since, but I'm sure there's a script out there.
Setting it in present day, maybe the concept
is the same location, or is it just a straight remake? We're not even going to bother with referencing the other one.
Probably wouldn't bother referencing it.
Yeah,
like I wouldn't mind going back and telling the story, but again, I'm going to know the twist. It's not going to be for me.
True.
It's going to be for a new generation of audiences.
Maybe the twist shouldn't come at the end of the film. Maybe the twist should come midway through.
Reveal it.
Yeah, kind of like Gone Girl does it midway through the movie and through the book. To be fair, so yeah, maybe you do it like that. Maybe you don't. That's not something you hold on to in terms of the twist. You don't hold it to the end
because it should be them reconciling that they're ghosts and reconciling what they did. The whole thing about ghosts usually in a good ghost story is to reconcile what you did. That being a ghost gives you another chance to learn from your mistakes. At least anything that shows ghosts as anything other than the monster.
Well, what are some of your favorite ghost movies?
I mean, obviously Poltergeist.
All right.
But the ghosts there are trying to get them off their land, trying to be reunited with their bodies. Obviously, it's haunting because
we're talking about the original, everyone.
Yes, they mistreated their graves. Sixth Sense is probably my favorite.
Yeah,
and in that, obviously, the ghosts have to have something and find peace and move on. Right. The movie Ghost, I love as well. Again, about finding peace, just with what happened and helping the ones you love.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anything else.
No, those are probably
like the big three.
There's probably a bunch of others out there that we don't remember.
Oh, what's it called? Ricky Gervais that we did.
Ghost Town.
Ghost Town.
Yeah, I guess that's a good one. It's not really a spooky ghost story, but that's a good one. Casper. I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's a good one.
You got to
Or
basically
Frighteners. Frighteners is more of an
Frighteners,
action.
yeah. That's another one we did on the cast.
Yep.
But it's the same thing where you have to kind of make peace and then you get to go.
Yeah, I think
right or wrong.
That's the theme throughout. There's no, I honestly, with this movie, just taking it back to the others, that theme of finding peace and moving on is not here, because
exactly.
I would assume that Mrs. Mills and all them found peace and they didn't move on.
I feel like they stayed because they really liked the house, because she talks about how much they love the house and taking care of the house and stuff.
We were servants in our life, and we love the house so much that in our afterlife we want to be servants as well. That makes
servants
no sense,
again.
Mrs. Mills.
We
Makes
live
no
to
sense.
serve. It's the line from Clue. Ours is not to do or die. Ours is ours is not to reason why. Ours is but to do or die. Alfred
There you
Lord
go.
Tennyson, sir. I feel like that's just a very English sentiment, though.
I'm going to give you Roger Ebert's review.
Okay.
I only have one review for you this time around. He gave it 2.5 stars out of 4, praising that Alejandro Amenabar has the patience to create a languorous, dreamy atmosphere, and Nicole Kidman succeeds in convincing us that she is a normal person in a disturbing situation, and not just a standard issue horror movie hysteric. However, he notes, in drawing out his effects, the director is a little too confident that style can substitute for substance. What do you think about that?
I mean, yeah, kind of.
That's kind of what we're saying, right?
It's a lot. There's not a lot of substance in there.
Yeah.
It's got a ton of style. Like I said, if you're watching the film for the first time,
but
it absolutely works.
Okay. I would say off the top of my head, obviously I already talked to the cinematography and the atmosphere and the fog and all that. That's one. I would also include the way he uses the camera in terms of his movements of the camera, especially like when Grace is walking around the house at night trying to the piano scene,
right?
Trying to figure out what's going on, and the camera moves to actually from a still shot to it actively moves almost like it's a ghost coming close to Grace, getting behind her head. They do that a couple times.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I thought that style was interesting, but I can't really think of anything else in terms of stylistically. I mean, you're gonna count art department and set decoration, or what would you think? What else am I missing?
I mean, I really enjoyed some of the shots as well when they're creeping around, like the painting when it's really dark in the room and she goes by the colonial painting and all of a sudden that white face turns into a portrait. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really well done.
So that, just to jump in there, because I always have facts, that was actually, it's a recreation of an 1855 painting called The Wounded Cavalier. And that's actually that's an image from the painting. So it's a close-up image of that. So they had somebody draw that out. And that The Wounded Cavalier is actually by William Shakespeare Burton. So that's where that painting comes from. But go ahead, Butler.
I also think the scene with the two haunting scenes, kind of like the two spooky scenes. The first one where she's undoing all the tarps in the room where everything's covered with tarps and the door behind her closes that she sees in the window. I thought that was very well done. And it was a light scene, which was interesting. And then the scene, obviously, with the woman with the gray eyes, the medium, when she goes and she's
blind.
She can't see. She thinks it's her daughter in the dress, but it's actually the medium has possessed her, kind of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was a really cool shot because of the way you can't really tell. And then you can start to see that the arm isn't quite right. And you go around. I thought that was really good storytelling with the camera in terms of let's start revealing what's under that as you turn around as Grace goes around her.
Yeah, there's a lot of good camera movement in the movie that adds to the tension and kind of the uneasiness, maybe not tension, but uneasiness of watching the film. You mentioned the disease that the children have. It's called xeroderma pigmentosum. And if you're extremely sensitive to sunlight, it's extremely rare. Only 1,000 people, up to 1,000 people in the world will have this. My question, do we really need this? Do the kids really need to have that?
An excuse to keep the mood moody.
Yeah. I mean, they're already in white makeup, which is supposed to be a hint that they're ghosts. They're really pale.
Right.
I just don't understand if we really needed. I mean, unless the having that disease was part of the reason she's frustrated why she smothers them, it's never really said that's why. I just don't know if having that disease is an excuse why they can't leave the house or They have to be, in the attic deep at night. I don't understand. I didn't know if we needed it.
I just don't know how you keep them in the house other than giving them something like that.
Maybe they just don't ever leave the house.
Both kids are agoraphobic. I mean, they're so little though. You just be like,
Maybe.
get the hell out of this house, especially back then.
Maybe.
You wouldn't care about their mental health. Not in
If
1950.
But here's the other thing. If they're extremely sensitive to sunlight, then maybe they sleep during the day and they do stuff at night. Like maybe you know what I mean? That's something I thought of. I'm like, well, why don't they just do stuff at night? Why don't they just change your routine?
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah.
Stop poking holes in this movie, man.
Well, why are we saying it's forgotten?
I think we've just said why it's forgotten. I think it doesn't hold up for a second watch. So a lot of people saw it when it first came out. I mean, it made a ton of money here and overseas. It was Spain's most popular movie until 2014. It was overtaken. But it just doesn't. So everybody has seen it. Or at least saw it at the time. But I don't think people really go back to it. I don't think people really take a look at it. And it does have some really good shots and decoration and atmospheric horror. But I feel like the story now doesn't hold up because it relies on the twist. And I feel like there are a lot of people now that do that twist better and have done ghost stories better. Like this was great back then in terms of atmospheric horror. But now you've got stuff like Hill House and Bly Manor has just come out as well, which is the sequel series. And those, I think, take atmospheric horror and do it so much better and have amazing character development where you actually care about the characters. And I feel like this just doesn't.
For $17 million, though, that's pretty good in terms of what you got out of your budget.
Oh, they made a ton.
Limited cast. And I'm sure Kidman did this for scale because the Cruise was producing it. I guess I want to throw two things in here to see if you think this is also a reason why it was forgotten, or maybe not so much forgotten, just kind of like people don't talk about it anymore. This movie came out the weekend where Cruise and Kidman were getting divorced.
I'm sure that killed the publicity. Yeah,
highly publicized divorce, and that's kind of when it wrapped up. That might have helped the movie though, just to kind of see her in it. But regardless of that, so who knows? And I don't really put a lot. I don't put a lot of weight into the personal lives of actors and actresses and directors who are watching these films, unless it's something that's really big. So I just wanted to bring that up. The other thing I wanted to bring up is this is almost a month to the date before the attacks on 9/11. And I'm wondering because after that happened, I mean, it's not like people were thinking like, we got to get to the theater.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering and I never looked into this, if box office took a dig, if it was just kind of like people just didn't want to, we're just glued to the TV because obviously a lot of people know what happened after that in terms of, we went to war on terror and all that stuff. So I'm just curious if you think that had any effect on it.
I'm sure it did in terms of staying power. I also think that after 9/11, do you really want something that depressing? Well, is that really what you want?
In terms of the other stories getting made, maybe. I mean, we talk about it on the cast. I think we talk about this on the cast, how horror films often reflect how society is feeling at that time. They're a great reflection in terms of what people's fears are, what people are concerns about. And you get, and through a lot of filmmakers and writers and storytellers, you get a lot of that in horror, more so than anything else.
Right.
So, maybe ghost stories kind of were no longer in vogue after this, and it became something else like zombies. And, I think zombies is when zombies started coming back, right?
This is around when zombies started coming back. Yeah.
So maybe that could be part of it. Maybe it just kind of, people don't go back and look at this film as one, let's watch this. I remember, let's watch this. There's other things. It's also depressing. So like we said, it's really difficult to go back and watch it again. And because you don't want to be depressed on a Saturday night. Yeah. When it's for movie night. But I mean, I think maybe all those maybe factor in, maybe none of them factor in. Maybe we're just, full of it because they made $210 million. So who cares?
But you can't find it now, really.
That's true. But you know what, Butler? Where can they find us?
You can find us at ForgottenCinemaPodcast.com or ForgottenEntertainment.com, as we are part of the Forgotten Entertainment family. While you're there, check out all the other great podcasts and videos we have for you, and join us on the lobby, or in the lobby, which is our Facebook group where you can talk about movies. Do you remember the others? Do you agree with us? Have you seen it since the first time? Does the twist really hold up for you? Let us know.
And join us next week as the worst time of the year for Butler comes around, the end of Forgotten Horror. And we're finishing off, I guess, with a bang with the 1997 science fiction horror film Event Horizon.
This is our first science fiction horror film, right?
I don't know. I mean, vampires aren't real. Can't that be science fiction?
I mean, I guess, yeah, technically.
I don't know. So that's next week. We'll do an Event Horizon. That stars Lawrence Fishburne, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, not the other P.T. Anderson, or P.A. Anderson, I guess. I don't know if he's known as that.
P.A. Anderson.
That's next week. I'm Mike Field.
I'm Mike Butler.
And this has been Forgotten Cinema.
No. Forgotten
Horror. Not for long.